Hey everybody, thank you for stopping by for another H2H chat. We're so excited to be here. This one's a special one. We have a panel of people here with me for H2H chat. Real quickly, just in case you're tuned in and this is your first H2H chat, you can be tweeting alongside the chat, and the hashtag is H2HChat. The other thing that we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking questions throughout. So if you wanted to pose a question on Twitter, then Susie is standing by. She will take your H2H, she will take, I'm used to saying H2H so many times, I'm just going to say it one more time. You can pose any questions that you want, and we will be sure to get those in today's chat. So without further ado, I wanted to welcome three very lovely people here with me today. I'm excited to be talking about this because we're talking about the power of storytelling and how storytelling can come in all shapes and sizes. And this is kind of a new format that I don't think anybody here, I would venture to say, has seen too much of. As you may or may not know, this is a we're partnering with IBM to talk about the power of storytelling, and there's no better way to do it than to actually use a real-world example. And this example encompasses actually putting people together and building and filming a story, kind of a reality series around people, and using it to showcase and to give people an insight into how teams and millennials and people can work together. So I'm going to stop right there because these people can share way better than I can. So I've got Amber Armstrong, Sarah Covey, and Larissa Rhodes with me. Why don't we start with Amber? Amber, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself and your part in this storytelling adventure.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name's Amber Armstrong. I am the Program Director of Social, Mobile, and Commerce for IBM, focused on amplification and digital. My role in this particular project was kind of being the internal champion for it and making sure we've got all the right connections with the various pieces inside of IBM.
Great, great. Thank you and welcome, Amber. Larissa, why don't we head over to you and have you introduce yourself?
Great. So my name is Larissa Rhodes, and I am one of the co-founders and a producer at Unreasonable Media, and we were sort of the media arm that was lucky enough to be brought into this project to work with Amber and Sarah to create this reality series. So we were sort of the production and storytelling support for that.
Fantastic and welcome. And Sarah, how about yourself?
Sure. So I am Sarah Kopi. I am the Director of Account Management for Verb, Inc. We partner with large corporations and foundations to run competitions in support of social entrepreneurs. And so my role within this project was that I gathered all of the entrepreneurs together, and we actually ran all of the logistics and competition for IBM. I worked very closely with Amber and her team to put this competition on, so thank you.
Well, thanks for being here. And why don't we kick it off? One of the things that I think everybody would be really interested in is first of all, the why. Why did you guys do this? What made you want to or think of doing this and deciding to do such a large-scale reality web series? And why don't we start that, Amber, with yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of a fun story. So we had this new email solution, IBM Verse, and this email solution is different than any other email that anyone's ever used. It really is this really cool technology. And if we went out and said to people, this is just a really cool technology, why don't you give it a try, you know, it's kind of boring. No one really cares that much about that. But if you say, we're going to show you this, and we really wanted to reach the millennial audience, and so our goal was to showcase the solution in use by a bunch of millennials, and we also wanted it to be from a really authentic place. So we decided to find entrepreneurial people that were running their own startups that are all focused on social good.
And so you all obviously you partnered with Sarah and Larissa, and so how did you build that team, and what did you know what you were looking for? I mean, obviously you need these little pieces and parts to be able to really make this work.
Yeah, and I think, you know, one of the reasons that we chose Verb and that we met Unreasonable through Verb was because Verb has the right to speak to the social entrepreneurs. They already have an established relationship there, and so we were able to latch on to that relationship, use their understanding of the market. Because one of the things that's really important, you know, as we're talking about this topic of storytelling, is you first got to come from a place of understanding. You've got to understand what is it that people are going to be interested in around this topic, and if it comes from something outside of that, you can lose a lot of authenticity. Verb had a really natural ability to do that, and then Unreasonable has their whole business is built around this entrepreneurial kind of focus, and so it was just a really great fit of storytellers.
So why don't we jump over to you guys, Larissa and Sarah? When you first heard about the project, what were your thoughts? How did you see this playing out, and did it even turn out the way that you first started?
Sure, I can take that question. I worked with
Sure.
Amber's team to really design what this program would be like, and actually it kind of starts with an interesting way that we work with Verb. We really wanted to find a project too to bring in Unreasonable Media. Because they're also a really respected partner in this space of social entrepreneurship. So when we worked with Amber's team to kind of figure out exactly what the goals of the program would be to really find millennial entrepreneurs to participate in this program, we just immediately thought of them. And what's kind of funny about how our process kind of came to be, we actually brought their team together and had a working session where we all sat around the table and kind of threw ideas out there on how this could form, and what kinds of activities would be really inspiring and important to social entrepreneurs. And of course, with IBM's background in touch and technology, we wanted to figure out a way to integrate that as well. So we really did kind of all sit around the table together and co-design the activities for the entrepreneurs and how many webisodes that would include and what the arc of the story would really be. Larissa, did you want to add anything to that?
Yeah. I think you covered most of it, but I think the only thing I would add is that Unreasonable Media is definitely an entrepreneur-centric piece of the brand, and so we were just really thrilled to see a company like IBM realize the opportunity to utilize storytelling and media to tell an incredible story of how their technology is actually helping people on the ground, especially in the millennial age group. And so I think in terms of kind of bringing together that partnership, they did just an amazing job of, finding the right partner to help run the competition and then figuring out how media fit into that. So I think we're just very lucky to have been part of this partnership.
Well, so let's jump into the how, because I think everybody out there would love to know how do you tell a story that's so complex with so many people involved and so many different so much criteria, right? I mean, you're accomplishing a lot. So let's talk about how you actually built the story. How did you storyboard this? Did you see the whole thing all the way through? Because it's, it is a reality story, so you can't predict what reality is. Now, if you're watching TV, people would argue maybe that some people are behind the scenes kind of pulling the strings, but I don't think that's the case here. So, Larissa, you seem to be doing the most smiling, so I'm going to start with you.
Yeah, it was a wonderful process overall, and I think you know, every project is different, and especially with documentary, you can't predict everything, but you really do try to hone in on the story that you want to tell. And so our job was to kind of highlight these incredible entrepreneurs and what they were doing, how they were utilizing the technology and how it was useful, and ultimately, you know, how they're going to be able to help the people that they want to help, so their customers. And for us, in terms of the storytelling, you know, we looked to Amber and to Sarah specifically to say, you know, what is the program going to look like? How are we designing it so that we can get the best media possible? And that really was huge, because most of the time we sort of are flying by the seat of our pants, filming whatever is happening in front of us. And at this point, we kind of got to take a seat at the table and say, we think this would be a really great opportunity to highlight X, Y, or Z. And so we worked with them to build scripts. We didn't necessarily storyboard things out because we weren't really sure exactly, you know, where we would be filming, but we sort of built outlines of each episode and what challenge they would have, and what we wanted to accomplish and what stories we wanted to tell. Anything you guys want to add to that?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, I think you guys did a really great job of that, but the important part of that was trying to figure out, like, what is it that these companies are doing? You know, these companies have some amazing stories, right? They're saving kids, and a couple of them are saving kids. I mean, they're helping people that have not a lot of money still eat healthy. And so having this kind of entrepreneurial social good piece underneath it really allowed us to tell a story that people could connect with. And you were about to finish the story, so the final episode comes out on July 1st. So the story's not done. I mean, we might know where the story's going, but not everyone else does.
And I think just to add to that, it also is really about, you know, people love to learn about technology and they love to see companies, but sometimes they're very intangible. And I think one thing that Sarah and Amber really wanted to focus on was kind of that human story and wanting to kind of understand how we could convey the emotion that is the passion and the excitement that is behind all of these companies and these entrepreneurs.
Great, great. So let's talk about the actual people. There was a lot of people that involved, not just on the production side and the storytelling side, but also the teams. How did you pick the people on the teams to take part?
Absolutely. So we looked into our network of social entrepreneurs that we have.
I'm sorry. Hold on one sec. I totally missed. Larissa said human. I'm sorry. I didn't even hear it. She stuck it in there so well. I didn't even catch it. Sorry. So that was a little bit late, but okay. So Sarah, go ahead. I'm sorry about that.
Perfect. No, I definitely don't want to take away Larissa's applause. I'm happy to pause. But so we were a work of social entrepreneurs within the History of Verbs competition, and we have a database as well. And then we worked with Unreasonable to talk through some shining stars that they may also have connections with. And together we crafted a huge list of top social entrepreneurs that are working in the United States right now in very different industries. Like Amber was mentioning, we had teams that had a connection to childhood safety. We also had teams that had connections to health and to food sustainability. And so we looked at all of these different industries, ranked them on, you know, just some that we felt like had really interesting stories, and also looked into their background a little bit to see, like, who could we really get that human connection out of? Who could we really have an emotional and passionate story? And then we provided that list to Amber and her team and just kind of talked through together, like, what are some of the biggest stories that IBM wants to highlight? And so we were able to cull that list down to about 20 entrepreneurs themselves, provided them some background on the program. And really from there, we were able to choose 10 that we were going to invite to come to South by Southwest. And South by Southwest is such a dynamic environment for entrepreneurs especially, so we knew we really wanted to do something fun. And a type of event that's held at South by Southwest quite a bit is these pitch events where entrepreneurs come and they pitch their companies and then they're given some kind of honor or award. So we held a pitch event at South by Southwest where these 10 teams could tell their stories. And then in that, at the end of that event, we had 5 final judges who kind of determined who they felt like did the best job out of that pitch event, and then they were invited back to be a part of the accelerator. So that's kind of the process of how we narrowed it down, definitely with IBM and Unreasonable's input in partnership.
And you know, a lot of the people that are watching are probably marketers, and you know, you're probably thinking, you know, how did you pick some of these, you know, these people, right? So they had great stories already, but we actually asked them to submit in user-generated videos. So if you go to ibm.com/newwaytostartup and you scroll down to the bottom, you'll see the user-generated videos. Those videos told us a lot about who was going to be good on camera, right? Because someone may have a great story, but if they have no persona, then you're not going to pick them. So they were almost like audition videos, if you will.
Interesting. Did anything surprise you along the way, or surprise any of you along the way? Was there? I mean, you could do all the planning in the world, but what came up and really just kind of sideswiped you, or took? I mean, you found out, wow, this is like something we won't do the same way next time.
I think there were a couple of things on a positive, or just a fun kind of note. The very first day of the event, we are filming at South by Southwest. We have a house out in, if anyone knows Austin, out in this Tarrytown part neighborhood, and it's this beautiful house, and there's these huge boom mics running all around the house, and they're kind of in your face. And it was something I was really surprised about is how quickly that goes away, and so you don't even realize that they're there. And it really was kind of a, you know, if you think about how some of the reality TV shows that we know that maybe aren't as professional as this one, you know, you can see how people start to just live their lives and kind of make their stories, you know, whatever they're going to be, because they're just being human. They're just being who they are. And so then, and so you end up ignoring the cameras. I would say lessons learned, though. So for when we came back after, so at South by Southwest, we narrowed it down to 5 teams. And then when we came back, we were at a house out at Lake Travis. And this house is extraordinary. It's the most amazing house I've ever personally been in. And, you know, I would say just a total kind of tactical lesson learned. It was really far from town. That was really kind of complicated because you're on this really tight schedule, right? But it was an amazing house, and I probably wouldn't do it any differently. But you know, it was some tactical things that you don't necessarily think about until you're kind of living it day to day.
So I would add on to that too that I think for some of those tactical things when we were filming, I just have to call out Larissa and her team for doing an amazing job, because we were trying to fit people with, like Amber was saying, boom mics and big equipment into these small, tiny Uber cars, because we were using some Ubers to try to get entrepreneurs to meetings and things like that. And so I don't think that we would have done it any other way, just using that beautiful house that Amber had found for us. But it was just, at one point it was kind of like, okay, just squeeze in, just get in the car, you've got to go. So those were some fun challenges for sure.
So you guys worked with people, and I'll not say that word so I don't bring the noise in. So, but how did you see them grow through the process? Because they started out with a set of expectations, and I mean, obviously the last episode is still to be released, but you guys probably saw them grow as people, as business young people, right? How did you see them grow, and what changes, maybe a certain person or character? How did you see them change and learn?
You know, it's kind of cool, and you can actually see it for yourself. So if you go to the website, again, it's ibm.com/newwaytostartup. If you go out there, and they're probably putting it in the chat as well, But if you go out there, you'll see their user-generated videos, and then you'll see their South by Southwest pitches. On Thursday, we're going to show their final pitches that they did at the finale event. So it was held in the end of April, and you can just watch it, right? Their confidence comes across so much more. I think from an actual business perspective, a lot of them really improved on their business model. I mean, some of the challenges they went through, they sat down with VCs and they really got challenged and pushed. And it was a little uncomfortable for some of them because some of them were, and I think this happens a lot in social entrepreneurship, where people are really passionate about something and they really want to have that come forward and be supported. But in order for that to be a long-standing business, you've got to make money on it, right? There's a difference between social entrepreneurship and nonprofit. These guys aren't nonprofits, and so really pushing them on that, how they're going to make money, how they're going to invite people in who are going to find value from what they're offering. That was something where I think they all really grew. That was one of the toughest challenges, I think.
So let's talk about some of the production aspects as you're going through and you're seeing. I realize that the camera is there, and the camera is really kind of like eventually falls to the background. But did you have any challenges with any of the people there getting used to the camera, or was everybody okay with it?
I think, it took a little bit of getting used to. I think, these are people that are not necessarily used to being the center of stage and specifically on camera, but I think we work really, really hard to make sure that people feel comfortable about how they're being portrayed. And although this is a reality TV series, it's really focused on the best parts of these people and the best parts of their business. And so really kind of helping them understand, what our goals were and how we could make sure that, we were going to make them look good while still doing it in an honest portrayal. So I think that was the key to kind of setting up that conversation at the onset, to give them an idea of what the scope of the project looked like and what our team was going to be doing, kind of walking through how we would be filming, and also giving them an opportunity to say, I might not be comfortable with X, Y, or Z. So we had rules. We weren't going to follow them into the bathroom. We aren't we're reality, but we're not real world. So I think that was one of the things that really helped kind of set up the expectations for the entrepreneurs to feel comfortable with us getting really intimate and capturing their stories.
Yeah.
So did some of them just use the bathroom all the time?
You have to understand, too, that these guys are running their businesses as well when they were spending time with us. So I think it was a really important show of trust and relationship building between us to make sure that they did have some time to conduct conference calls or do any other, email business that they needed to take care of during their time with us. We even had one team that went on a separate business meeting in the early morning, right before we even got started filming, just because he wanted to make the best of this experience as well. So I think it was important to make sure that they knew that we recognized that they were also running businesses.
And so I think the only thing...
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, to add to that, I think once they realized kind of the power and clout that IBM and Verb had put together in terms of the events and the people they were bringing, they realized that it was more an opportunity for them to share than it was an opportunity for us. It was kind of gave them a voice and a platform. And so I think after that, we had teams kind of coming up and saying, hey, we're doing this. Do you want to come film that? So I think they really kind of got into it and wanted to share.
So I love the fact that this was all about sharing. I want to ask you two different actually questions as a follow-up to that. The first one is on competition, and I know we talked about how you pick them, but what I'm curious about is how did you see them evolve and compete? And I don't mean just on the video, but I mean as individuals, did you see them start to get a little bit more competitive as they went along? Or were they just kind of all friends and hanging out and this is fun? Like, where did you see the breakdown there?
I don't think we saw anyone, trying to sabotage anyone else. There wasn't any, no one was like, slashing tires or anything. But I think that we saw them start to, I certainly witnessed, they started to kind of look at each other and say, oh, they really did a great job of that, and so it was more not necessarily competing with each other, but more kind of learning from each other, and they were really supportive of each other. I mean, they were making connections for each other and really working together, I think.
Oh, that's great. So it wasn't like the Trump show where they were competing and yelling at each other in the boardroom, backstabbing each other. None of that took place, which is good.
None of that.
They were all very, very nice to each other. So
I was hoping for a little bit of that at least. I didn't get it.
It's kind of the community of social entrepreneurs, though. Most of them are just kind of wired that way to help connect each other. I think that's the nature of why they would even be in a socially good-minded organization. So, but yeah, I think we were kind of hoping for a little bit of like spicy drama, and they all just loved each other. So.
So let's talk about the sharing aspect. You say socially good, but also the sharing. Could they share as they went? I think they had some behind the scenes video that you're talking about, Amber. But were they able to tweet? Were they able to share the experience as it went, or was this reserved for the reality? Like, how transparent were you guys?
We were extremely transparent. We actually had Bryan Fanzo, so iSocial fans, as most of the people will know him. He came out during South by Southwest and gave some lessons and challenged the team on how to draw attention to their work over social media. We also had Chelsea Crost as our host, and Chelsea is a master at social media, and really had a really great experience with her, helping the teams understand social, doing some social videos and things with them as well. We had during South by Southwest, the Lassie Project won that original competition with 500,000 impressions in less than 24 hours, which was pretty amazing for a company that didn't know a lot about social coming into it.
So now let's talk about the where. You mentioned that this was at a house. Can you guys describe? Obviously, I can see this in the video. I think I would definitely go look at this house. I think I've been in the house when I was there for South by Southwest, and it's pretty amazing. But can you guys describe where this took place and a little bit about that and how you actually got it and all that?
Yeah, I can talk about that. So the house was actually designed by a friend of mine as an architect, Wynn Whitman, and the house was on the market, or is about to go on the market actually. And so it was sitting there, beautifully decorated, designed, all this amazing stuff. There's a baby Steinway, a hand-painted Steinway in the living room, and they were happy to have us use the house. It helps them obviously build up awareness for the house and kind of a little bit of a history behind the house as they're marketing it. And so we were able to go out and use it, and it was right there on Lake Travis. It was, for those of you who know Austin, we've been in a drought for several years, and it ended relatively recently, but you can still see there's lots of, not a lot of water in the lake out there. But it was great because it was a little bit secluded, and so I feel like we all kind of felt like we were kind of on vacation a little bit, even those of us that live in Austin. It was pretty cool.
Oh, that's great.
I think, Sarah, one of the pieces of that was that, kind of in that preliminary discussion of what are the pieces that could really make this show and this accelerator program work, was to try to create what is called like the island effect, which is like getting people to kind of get all together to kind of create family bonding in a way that you're not distracted by all the everyday. So since a lot of the companies were Austin-based, wanting to pull them away from, you know, their day-to-day and bring them into this environment where they really sort of are isolated from the world to create kind of like an instant bond and an instant way for them to dive in and really focus and not be distracted by sort of the day-to-day. And I think Sarah and Amber really kind of did that in a very unique and a really kind of amazing grand scale.
So let me just dive into a few questions here. I'm gonna come back around to some questions that I have for you guys. But now we're halfway through, and I wanted to make sure that some people had their questions answered. They're coming in here. So Dave Cox at Dave Cox COX. He said, "How are you tailoring the stories you tell for general millennials versus influencer millennials, or are you separating into those two groups?"
I don't think we're separating
That's a really
into those.
good question. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't think we're separating into those two groups. I mean, one of the reasons we decided to tell the story from this viewpoint is that we know that millennials are some of the most interested in entrepreneurship of any of the recent generations. And we know that they're also very interested in giving back and doing good. So those are the millennials that we wanted. We wanted to tell that story from the technology story through their eyes. We didn't really divide it out into which ones were influencers and which ones weren't, other than obviously pulling in Chelsea Cross and Bryan Fanzo, who certainly are millennial influencers, and we brought them in as a part of the story to really help coach the millennials that weren't as familiar with social.
Great. Okay, that's great. So let me go to Ruby Ong at Ruby Grace ONG. What did you decide was your measure of success for this? Was it views, or was there other things? And they put etc., but I'm going to say other things. But,
yeah, I feel like I'm taking all the questions here, but certainly the things that we looked at from a marketing perspective, and then I'll let Sarah talk a little bit about what it looked like to be success from the Verb perspective and from the entrepreneur perspective. But from our perspective, we wanted to certainly see the number of views. We wanted to also see people looking at IBM Verse, registering for IBM Verse. We also brought in Watson Analytics into this process, so we looked at that as well. And then being able to see the social conversations. So one of the things we track is certainly the number of impressions on the New Way to Work hashtag, that sort of thing.
So from the entrepreneur's perspective, I think what we do at Verb is all about connections. And I think we really wanted to make sure that the 5 entrepreneurs that came to the accelerator really felt like that IBM and also the mentors that we brought in to work with them really were there to support them and there to help them further their business. So we had, not only did we have marketing mentors come in on day 1, we also had them each individually meet with a VC group that they have all been able to follow up with and get more information on how they can continue to raise funds and work with an investor, because some of the entrepreneurs have never done that before, and that's a huge part of I think something that they were able to get from this program. And then also we had each of the teams meet with a potential partner, and we have allowed them to continue to work those relationships and build upon that. One of our entrepreneurs that participated in this program was just honored by the governor in the state of Texas last week, and I think a lot of what she received out of this program for sure, and the rest of the entrepreneurs as well, was just getting additional support and getting their name out there and exposure and connections to really great people who can help them as they're navigating this, this tricky water that is entrepreneurship. Yeah,
that it is tough. That's one of the challenges, and that's why I like the series so much, because it really brings to light the maze of entrepreneurship, and it really kind of condenses it and tells that story in the way that you guys have achieved it. I mean, in a reality way, in a real way, and dare I say, in a human way. So, can I do that for me? So we're at 5. So one of the other questions that came in here was really interesting from, let me grab it here. It was, I'll have to grab the name in a second, but it was back on the question of storyboarding. How do you actually visually or in the written way storyboard this out? How did you guys get together and storyboard it? Can you guys walk through that process? Actually, maybe Larissa, is that something that you can do?
Yeah, I think it was less about kind of storyboarding, but more about kind of trying to figure out how people would engage with these stories, and how we were able to kind of bring in a little bit of drama, so a little bit of competition and a little bit of excitement and some of the judging. And I think one of the things that Amber and Sarah did really well was to kind of bring in some kind of bigwig kind of key people. So in one of the challenges, they were setting each of the teams up with a potential partnership. Some of them went to Whole Foods, some of them actually got to go to the police department, and were able to kind of bridge these incredible partnerships in the span of less than a week. And so I think for us, it was really trying to figure out, you know, while some of these things are developing on the fly, how do we capture those and tell kind of the truest story that we could tell, while also allowing for some of the excitement and some of the unknown to play into those scripts.
Yeah,
so
I think that.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I was just going to add. I think one of the things that was really, you know, because you don't know the story, so you can't really storyboard it out in the way you might typically think of storyboarding out a video that you're doing for work. But what you could do instead is figure out, okay, we're going to give them this task, and we're going to give them 2 hours to do it. And you have to trust that by limiting the amount of time that they can do this particular task, that's going to create some tension, which is going to kind of contribute into the story and the feel of the reality show overall. We didn't want it to be a cakewalk.
J.S. Gilbert, he asked, and that's at Gilbertism, asked, do you think that today we need to make the stories we tell shorter and more concise, especially to the millennial audience?
Yeah.
Who feels, yeah?
Yeah, definitely we do. You know, I would say as we're thinking about the things that are more challenging with this is, you know, it's our videos are only, 8-9 minutes long. That's still really long for a video. So you really got to make sure that the story is worthwhile and that people are bought into the people that are participating in this story enough that they want to stay and listen. Because it's not a product pitch. It is really telling the story of these entrepreneurs. And then the way we've also done it is to break it out into a series so that, you're not giving them, an hour-long video, here, sit down and watch this. You're breaking it up in 8-minute sections that come out on a regular, scheduled, every Thursday kind of basis.
And I think anyone who has been on social media knows that it's really tough to build an audience. And so I think one of the things that we really try to do is we try to leverage these iconic and exciting and invigorating entrepreneurs, and people kind of get behind those stories and want to come back and see, well, did they win or were they able to kind of get through that challenge? And so I think hopefully one of the things that we learned from this and that hopefully we'll continue to do is that length the right kind of length? And would we have been better to do it shorter or longer? I think hopefully the entrepreneurs would agree that, for them this has been really, really instrumental in getting their name out about their small business and getting a following for each individual. And hopefully the people that did watch and maybe saw some things that they want to bring into their business it was helpful for them as well. But I think, on the grand scale, are we able to tell stories that people want to hear and listen to and continue to come back? And I think that the answer is overwhelmingly yes with all of the new serial content from HBO and Netflix. It's not just people want to sit down for one movie at a theater anymore. It's they want to engage with characters and continue to follow those lives and those stories.
Isn't that true? Netflix is booming right now because of exactly what you just said. We're all turning into binge watchers, and what's interesting is they're investing in shows for a whole season. They're not just investing in one or two shows. They're actually building the entire series, which is so different than television. Because television will cancel a show three shows in if it's not working well. But now everyone's starting to invest in the full season, and that's changing the game. It's disrupting the game, and I couldn't agree more with what you're saying there.
I think something that became pretty cool about the way that Unreasonable actually presented this story is that we've talked about, having this full arc of the series across all of the episodes, but also in each individual episode, Unreasonable really wanted to highlight each of the entrepreneurial teams as an individual. So I think that kind of like, to drop a Netflix series name, like Orange is the New Black kind of highlights each of the characters in one of their segments, but then you have the overarching story of the entire series. I thought that was really brilliant and pulls the audience through this particular series.
So Sarah, Sarah, you are Sarah. They quoted you in the question. What is important to social good? How do you inspire social entrepreneurs?
That's a great question. So I think really something that we wanted to make sure was core to this program was that it would really drive value for the participants, for the entrepreneurs. And so when we set out to do, design of this program, we started to look at what are the top needs of entrepreneurs that are trying to do something good in the world. And so of those three things, we know that they need funding. We know that they need to have a sustainable business model, and we know that they need good partnerships and distribution partners in particular. So when those themes kind of started to emerge, we looked at our network of mentors and VIPs and thought, well, how can we make connection in that regard? And so, as I mentioned before, that's why we really felt strongly about pairing them with a venture capitalist on one of the days. And they had to really do some examination of their business model and talk through, ways in which they wanted to make sure they had funding. And then, again, connecting them with their customers and making sure that they could go out on the street and talk with individuals, because I think that's another important part of you have to know who you're going to serve as an entrepreneur, but especially as social entrepreneurs. I think a lot of them, as Amber mentioned a little bit earlier, of course are very passionate about the issue that they're looking to solve, but we wanted to make sure that they could go the extra mile and then connect them to these mentors and resources that could help them get there.
Great. Oh, that's fantastic. You guys, the questions are just pouring in.
Oh, good.
We're on our own reality TV right now. So I'm listening to you guys, and I'm also trying to give you the best questions because this is such an engaged group. So thank you everyone out there for all your questions. This is so fantastic. This is another good one, actually from our friend Dave. Would love to hear from you all. What is the next step for the campaign or project? How does this story continue for IBM and entrepreneurs?
Yeah,
so they already want to jump to the conclusion.
Yeah, you guys are rushing the story here, but that's okay. So this Thursday we're going to show the pitches, the final pitches. So we haven't even talked about the final pitch session yet. So for the final pitches, we had the 5 companies present at this super cool venue in Austin. We brought in about 100 very select angel investors and people from the Austin, BC community. and they watched them. We brought in 5 judges that were, really pretty tough and asked them some pretty challenging questions at the end of their pitches. You're going to see those coming out this Thursday. So look, if you follow at IBM Social Biz on Twitter, you'll see those. You can also find them on the website that I mentioned earlier. And so you're gonna see that. Then the following week, July 1st, we're gonna do we're gonna tell the story, the conclusion to the story live. We're really excited about it. It's gonna be we're gonna live stream in all of the different companies, and we're gonna in a live format tell you who is the IBM Social Business Entrepreneur of the Year.
Wow, that's a big one.
Yeah.
That is a big one. Okay, so here is another one from Stephen Ford. He said, what would you say was the biggest challenge all participants faced throughout the compilation? I can see you all looking up to the sky for that one.
I might say that just with all of the accelerator programs that Unreasonable Media has been a part of, I think the biggest challenge that we've seen entrepreneurs face on and off camera is just being able to dive in completely and be able to use all of the resources that IBM and Verb were providing, whether it was mentors or potential investors or partnerships or even the technology, IBM Verse and Watson Analytics. But it's also to run their company and keep their teammates engaged, because their teammates aren't always part of the process, and so wanting to relay all of that information and bring everybody up to speed, I think, is one of the hardest things. And so hopefully with some of the technology they were able to kind of capture and integrate a little bit better this time around.
Yeah, I think the one that the challenge that we did that I saw the most kind of tension for the team was when we went out for the face-to-face meetings. So they went to meet potential partners, and it was, it was pretty cool. So they find out that morning that they're going to meet with partners. At the end of the opening session, we say, okay, stretch recipes, you're going to Whole Foods, Lassie Project, you're going to the police department. And that was the first they'd heard of it. And so then they immediately rush over to Watson Analytics, and they're trying to find out as much as they can and put the technology to use to help make those meetings useful. And then they've got to come up with, what are we going to say? What are our goals out of this? And this isn't staged, right? We don't know what's going to happen. We didn't say, hey, Whole Foods, be really nice to these people. They could get laughed out of the office. They didn't. I mean, they didn't. Lauren did a great job. But having that, pressure of, and it's just like real world, right? I mean, things happen, and you have to react quickly, and there are cameras following you around. I think that was probably one of the more challenging days that I saw for the team.
So, what was your? I'm going to throw this in to you guys. How about let's turn the camera on you. Here you are, you three and your respective teams, watching all of this, trying to respond in real time. How did you guys respond in real time to what they were responding to in real time? How did you interact with them or with the cameras? How was the behind-the-scenes crew working through all these different instances to make sure that it was coming together? Because like you said, Amber, you're responding in real time. You do that in real business, by the way, so this is not a, you know what I mean? This is so interesting because this is how we really are, and here the kids are learning this, or the contestants are learning this. So how were you guys dealing with that on the back end?
I think we were really fortunate in finding the house that we found, because it was 2 levels, and on the bottom floor there was a room that kind of became like production headquarters. So that's where we could all meet and discuss, at the beginning of the day, how the day was going to run. At the end of the day, we could do a wrap and talk through, what worked, what didn't, what's happening tomorrow. And so I think we were really, as a team, able to use that space as our, like I said, as our headquarters, where we could talk through everything that we needed to accomplish and reset if there were things that needed to change or we needed to refocus on, just due to the fact that we couldn't plan for every single thing, not knowing, how the entrepreneurs would do with some of the challenges. And so I just felt like those meetings were very useful that we were able to have as a production crew and team.
The only thing I would add to that is that I think we were really fortunate in being able to work with Amber and Sarah to really understand, how the challenges were going to run, and then be able to go back to my amazing team, which I want to give a shout out to, that they were able to really move quickly and decide how to break up into teams and how to follow all of these different trajectories and stories to make sure that we brought back the best of the best, that we could really follow, 5 teams as they spread out across Austin to make, these 2 hours really worth it for this particular challenge.
And there's something to be said too for, and I don't know if this really fits into this exact question, but for the trust that takes place, right? So IBM, we're amazing at technology. I have no doubts or qualms about saying that. Verb is really amazing at understanding entrepreneurships and building communities, and Unreasonable is really great at pulling stories out through video. And so having us all there with our own kind of expertise and just trusting that the other person knows exactly what they're doing and that you all aligned early on the goals, and it's amazing, like the things that the team across the board has come up with, I could have never have dreamed, like as not being an expert in media or not being an expert in entrepreneurship competitions, they came up with things that we couldn't have even known. And so seeing that mixed in with the entrepreneurs, it really made this really interesting dynamic.
So just so you know, you guys are getting some great comments here, like J.S. Gilbert. He said, hats off to IBM for allowing you all to do such a creative and potentially important project, and thanks for sharing it with us. And that's one of many that you guys are getting here. So thank you, JS, for sharing that with us. And so one of the questions here that we just got from our friend Bryan ran, have any contestants expressed concern about growing too much too fast? No?
No.
That's just an issue for you, Bryan.
No, I think all of the entrepreneurs that I think that we wanted to be a part of this, I think they were very well aware of the type of exposure that this could bring to their company. So I think they were all really excited about the possibilities. And I have heard from many of them towards our final announcement on July 1st that, this type of momentum and support from a large organization like IBM has allowed them to get more team members to kind of share the work and to continue to grow their missions. So I think they're all just really excited about the ability to get this type of exposure and support.
One of the companies, Charity Charge, is a great example. So they presented at South by Southwest, and we were talking to Steven from Charity Charge, and he was like, oh my gosh, I've been so busy in the last month. It just really being on that platform at South by Southwest, getting the social promotion was a big jump start for them, and that's just really cool to see.
I think Bryan, you're on your own on that one. Sorry, buddy. Everybody wants to see it grow. So one of the things that I know that you think about all of this that you're pulling together, and you're thinking, you're looking back and you're going, okay, what did I learn the most out of this? What was the one key takeaway? Not just for IBM, but for each of you. How did each of you grow, or how did each of you take something away from this experience that you didn't really think you would get out of this? Why don't we start with Sarah, and then we'll go to Larissa and then Amber.
Sure. Well, I think something that I got out of this competition that I do get to be face-to-face with all of our top entrepreneurs when we get to our final round. but never do I get to be so close to them on a total day-to-day basis. So, I mean, we were filming all day long and then would have to reset for the next day, and I was usually the first person in the house and the last person out of the house just to check on the entrepreneurs and make sure that they were doing well and that everybody was kind of hanging in there emotionally too, because you can imagine having cameras on you all day long can be a little bit draining. And so something that I really took away from this program was just really, and I'm not saying this to get applause, but the human connection to
But you know it's going to happen.
I know it's going to happen. But I really, really was so grateful for the opportunity to meet these amazing entrepreneurs and to sit and really talk with them at the end of the day about what are the biggest challenges that you guys are facing in your businesses going forward, and now for my organization Verb to think through ways of how we can continue to support them as well, because they'll be a part of our legacy now forever. And I thought that was the most important thing, is really walking away and knowing that I count these people as friends and within my network, and I just really want to see them succeed.
Oh, that's fantastic. That is awesome. Thank you so much for sharing that. Larissa?
Yeah, I will second kind of Sarah's wanting them to succeed and wanting to see the story continue. I think a lot of the work that Unreasonable Media has done in the past has been kind of focused on the global audience and working with global entrepreneurs around the world. And so it was really, really fun for us and really exciting to see kind of IBM and Verb shining a spotlight here in the U.S. on entrepreneurs that are local and that are really making a difference to address the needs and the lives of the people stateside. And for us, I think it just really is exciting to kind of see the beginning. It's sort of like imagining, seeing Steve Jobs in his garage, or seeing kind of one of the founders of IBM saying, how am I going to build something that ends up being a global multinational company that's responsible for all of the technology that we use every day, and seeing kind of that egg hatch. So for us, I am really excited to continue to share these human stories and to share kind of the power that is behind these entrepreneurs, and I hope that this audience that we've built will continue to support them and future entrepreneurs and other stories that IBM and Verb chooses to share.
Oh, that's really nice. Thank you so much again. Appreciate it. Amber?
Thank you.
Yeah, the lesson for me in this, and it's a little emotional, honestly. I think that I definitely have always wanted to try to do something that would be really meaningful and impactful, and having the power of IBM behind you to do that, and having management that let me take this crazy idea. My team's like, hey, could we do a reality TV show? And I'm like, I'll see, and people bought in, and they gave us money to do it. They gave us trust to do it. They really allowed us to be a part of reinventing IBM. I mean, it's no secret that IBM has struggled in the last couple of years, and we are all working so hard every day to reinvent this company, and IBM Burst is a great product to do that. Watson Analytics is a great product to do that. But to be able to do it while doing something really amazing for companies that are doing something really amazing for the world, I mean, I can't think of anything more valuable and meaningful.
Wow. Wow. Well, I'd say you each got something out of this.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, definitely.
I think I'd also like to add that there's a powerhouse of women behind this team as well as men, and that it was just really inspiring for me to get to work with these amazing companies, both the entrepreneurs, but also with Amber and IBM and Sarah and Verb for Unreasonable Media. We're a very small startup, and so we look to aspire to be companies like you guys are.
Yeah.
Well, virtual hug to all of you guys. Thank you so much. We do have 1 minute left, and you are one human away from winning it all. Just to throw it out there in case you wanted to have any last words.
Well, I think the most human thing that you can do is let people be human. Yay! There was two there. There were two.
Oh, was there two?
I said you can. And then you just follow them around with cameras while they're being human, and it's great.
There we go. So everybody out there can now tweet that that Amber and Larissa and Sarah just beat Joel Comm, Bryan Moran, and Jay Bear with more humans on H2H Chat spoken than any time before. So I wanted to thank each of you guys. Really, really appreciate it. You guys have made the hour go by so fast, and I really appreciate it. I know that people are going to want to follow up. Again, can you just for one last time please tell everybody, we've been tweeting it as well, but if you don't mind just saying where they can find everything, that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you go www.ibm.com/newwaytostartup, you'll find us. If you want to go direct to the videos, you can go to YouTube and look for IBM Social Business, and you'll see the videos there as well.
Great. Awesome. And any parting words from anybody that I didn't ask you or things that you wanted to say?
Thank you.
Yeah. That means
thank
I asked all the right questions. Good. Awesome. Okay, well, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And to everyone out there that's been partaking, this tweet stream is going off. I would definitely encourage the three of you just to circle back to Twitter because there are unanswered questions. And there's also some great comments about everything that's taken part. I know they'll all want to maybe hear from you if you have just a few moments just to say hi. But other than that, thank you, everybody. I really appreciate it. We'll see you next Monday. Until then, cheers.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bryan. Bye, guys.
Bye, guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.